Go ahead and take a really close look at the device screen you're holding right now. Whether it's a phone in your hand or a massive monitor on your desk, every single image you're seeing is a carefully constructed illusion. Well, in today's explainer, we're going to follow an invisible string. It's a string that connects the glowing digital pixels on your screen all the way back to the sacred geometry carved into ancient stone temples. We're decoding the hidden language of visual design.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the science of the image, then move into the psychology of color, followed by camera tricks for deep emotion. After that, we'll look at architecture as cosmic storytelling, and finally, animating ancient myths.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the science of the image, the blueprint of visuals.
Every visual masterpiece out there, whether we're talking about a massive digital movie file or an ancient carving, starts with a basic physical specification. Think about the concept of DPI, or dots per inch. Now, you might assume that a massive highway billboard would require literally millions of dots per inch to look good, right? But surprisingly, because we view them from so far away, those giant canvases actually only require a shockingly low 20 to 30 DPI. See, the closer we get to the canvas, the more density we need to trick the human eye. It's all about our physical relationship to the image. Now, building that into digital resolutions, the leap between formats is pretty wild. While 4K has pretty much become the standard for our home TVs, jumping up to 8K isn't just doubling the size. Actually, an 8K image is 16 times bigger than a 2K image. That requires vastly more computing power to render every single frame. We're talking about a massive grid of data, perfectly engineered for high-end broadcasting and absolutely massive canvases.
Let's move on to Section 2, the psychology of color, or what I like to call the heart of the image. Now that we understand the technical mathematical canvas, let's peel back the emotional layer. We're going to see how cultural color palettes actually manipulate our feelings. Because, let's face it, color is never just decoration. It's a profound cultural language. Take the specific energies of Indian fashion, for example. When an Indian bride wears a red lehenga, she isn't just picking a vibrant hue because it looks pretty. She's actively invoking love, prosperity, and the powerful energy of the goddess Durga. Yellow brings the joy and optimism of a pre-wedding haldi ceremony. Blue channels the courage and infinite nature of deities like Lord Krishna and Shiva. And a saffron flag, that instantly sets a specific emotional frequency of deep spirituality, fire, and ultimate sacrifice.
And this brings us to what is absolutely the ultimate rule of color: context is everything. Consider the dual meaning of the color white. On one hand, it symbolizes purity, peace, and spiritual knowledge, which makes it a highly auspicious choice for South Indian brides. But flip the context, and white is the color of mourning and detachment worn at funerals. The color itself didn't change one bit, but the cultural filter did, and that completely alters our emotional response. All right, diving into Section 3, camera tricks for deep emotion, visual psychology. Let's talk about how filmmakers act as emotional architects. They actively manipulate your psychological state using heavy camera hardware. I absolutely love this quote from cinematographer Shane Herbold. He says, "You are a visual psychologist tasked with translating the complex inner worlds of characters into a language of light, shadow, and movement." This introduces such a fascinating concept. Filmmakers establish visual rules of engagement for their characters. They're using the camera as a precise emotional tool, not just a recording device.
To put that into perspective, imagine a narrative where a character, let's call him John, is grappling with Alzheimer's and intense anxiety. How do you show that invisible struggle visually? Well, you might use a swing and tilt lens. Cinematographers can literally pan this specific lens, keeping the camera body perfectly still while physically shifting the focal plane itself. Parts of the frame will unnaturally slide in and out of focus. It instantly mimics severe psychological disorientation. It feels like a brief moment of clarity followed by sudden, terrifying confusion.
Now, let's reverse that anxiety into something beautiful. Think about the mechanical progression of two people falling in love on screen. Step 1, you start with clean, separate single shots of each character to establish distance. Step 2, as their connection grows, you move to dirty, over-the-shoulder shots, visually linking them together in the exact same frame. And Step 3, as the love really deepens, you swap to immersive wider lenses and move the camera physically closer. This completely removes the space between them and wraps the audience right up in their intimacy. It's a calculated, almost mathematical progression of empathy. This kind of emotional storytelling bridges directly into the divine, too. Spiritual cinematography relies on golden hour lighting, incredibly slow pacing, and visual symmetry to mirror an inward, introspective journey. Lingering takes and soft diffused light invite the viewer to just slow down. It offers a real sense of peace and transcendence. The camera essentially forces you to breathe and reflect.
Moving into Section 4, Architecture as Cosmic Storytelling, the Soul.
We are expanding our scale dramatically here. We're moving from the small rectangle of a camera frame to massive, immersive stone environments that act as literal microcosms of the universe. Remember that mathematical grid of our digital 4K renders we talked about earlier? Well, ancient architects used their own sacred grid called the Vastupurusha mandala. It is the cosmic, geometric blueprint for temple design, mapping celestial forces directly into a physical form. The digital grid and this ancient stone grid are ultimately doing the exact same thing. They're just different resolutions of storytelling, translating the invisible into the visible. Let's look at how this data is literally stored in stone. Take a few stunning examples from history. For instance, the Brihadishwara temple features an awe-inspiring 13-story tower capped with an 80-ton stone, representing the cosmic axis of Mount Meru. Meanwhile, the Konark Sun Temple literally uses 12 pairs of giant stone sundial wheels to measure time, acting as the sun god Surya's celestial chariot. Then you have the Keshava and Kendriya Mahadeva temples, which use perfect star shapes and ascending turrets to communicate incredibly complex mythological data. You see, these aren't just buildings. They're like ancient, giant, interactive hard drives of cultural memory. And physically experiencing these temples, it's a highly designed emotional narrative. A devotee walks out of the bright, illuminated, visually chaotic exterior and travels inward, eventually reaching the dark, quiet, sacred Garbhagriha, or Sanctum Sanctorum. It's a profound, immersive journey from the physical world right into the spiritual core, and it perfectly matches the calculated emotional arc of a movie protagonist finally finding their inner truth.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Animating Ancient Myths, the Modern Canvas.
Let's connect this ancient stone past right up with our digital present and see how millennia-old stories are being translated into modern pixels. Think about the expanding footprint of the deity Hanuman in recent media. In 2005, an animated feature film simply titled Hanuman absolutely revolutionized Indian media. It took a deeply revered deity and translated his story using a cute Western-style superhero aesthetic, and it was a massive hit. It directly paved the way for modern 3D animated films like Hanuman vs. Mahiravana, proving for sure that these ancient stories are incredibly adaptable to completely new visual languages.
But, this modern digital canvas also brings up some entirely new complexities. Consider the controversy that surrounded the PlayStation 2 game Hanuman, Boy Warrior. It was a huge milestone, the first digital console game developed entirely by an Indian digital gaming company. However, it sparked intense debate because players were suddenly given a controller to physically manipulate and direct a revered deity. It raises a fascinating, completely modern friction point. How exactly do we navigate the boundaries between interactive 3D entertainment spaces and traditional digital reverence? Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. We follow that invisible string from the 8K pixel grid, straight through the emotional psychology of a camera lens, across the sacred architecture of 13th century temples, and right into modern 3D video games. The medium is constantly changing, but the underlying intention remains exactly the same. So whether you are carving an ancient soapstone or rendering in millions of pixels on a glowing screen, I leave you with this question to ponder. What story is your visual language telling? Thanks for joining me on today's